G'day, g'day, g'day. MathematicalKM here. Remember their initials, not a title. Keith Malumbi. And today I was playing young Gitanch Basson. We'll have a look. This is the standings of round 9. So coming into this round, Tuggeranong Chess Club champs. And Gitanch has been playing at 1379. And for what it's worth, I've been playing at 1149. But my FIDE 1408, and his is yet to be calculated. But playing at 1380. So very bright young man, born in 2017. And I'm happy he never said the 4 scariest words in chess to me until after the game. And those words are, I think Solomon can relate to this probably better than me, but I watch your videos. What? Coming from an 8-year-old, strong chess player, quite scary indeed. We both made 4 great moves. We both made 3 blunders. I had 1 miss, he had 2 misses, but 4 mistakes to 3 mistakes. You can see this is going to be a rollicking. I had more bests, but he had nearly the same. Rollicking up and down game. Before we get into it, 94.4, typical for the hippo. Mind you, it was difficult to get the hippo because he watches my videos. Doesn't let me get the full hippo, or at least not really. You'll see. And 96.6 for his opening. 61 to 41 in the middle game. And endgame both had 77.2, which is quite interesting that we had the same. I had the white pieces. Let's just leave this just under so that we can see what the computer thinks of any given move. We won't get to bash out the first 10 moves, as I often do with the hippopotamus, because most opponents will let you set up the whole hippo. Thick-skinned. And we've already got a problem. It's going to be pretty difficult to fianchetto our queenside bishop. So we're going through probably a half hippo, getting the rest of our setup. Bit of a where to now, really. I mean, you could move the rook and then the pawn and then the bishop. A3 is one of the hippo moves. That's the top move. Rook to B1, what I was just suggesting. That was second top. Or H4, starting a bit of a pawn storm given we know where his king is. These are all good ideas. Note to self. What I did was thinking about another way to allow me to fianchetto the queenside bishop would be to push the d-pawn. Hasn't really changed the eval too much, but his top move is a move that's to be expected. C5. And I talked myself into what was perhaps not the best. Castling is best. C3. C3 is very interesting because it's leading into, I've watched all of Aman Hamilton's the Chessbra Stonewall speedrun. Some of the pieces aren't quite like the light bishop. But you could nearly cross over into a Stonewall and try and get a knight here. But I've gone with the fianchetto, and it's a weird cross between a hippo and Stonewall and Collie Zucator. Anyway, he takes in the middle. Taking back is the standard in the Stonewall, as you always take with that pawn. Meant to castle the king, and I probably should have castled the king sometime real soon, as we'll see, as sometimes happens with the old MathematicalKM. Bit of trouble with stuff being pinned to the king, but we'll see how we go with that. For now, it's the fight for the D pawn. We've got 2 attackers and only the 1 defender. Bishop to B2 gives me a second defender, second best. C3 is more immediate, defending with a pawn. I've gone second best, the bishop. So it's kind of like we've got our double fianchetto and the knight's where they go in a hippo, but the middle of the board is nothing like what I'm used to seeing, really. And 1, 2, 3 attackers on the poor old D pawn. 2 defenders. Best move, C3 forward to give me the 3 defenders, one of which is a pawn. But I've come across with a knight which can jump in. Mind you, he would have 2 attackers to my 1 defender because the Stonewall second pawn isn't here. But it's threatening that. It's also a defender, 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 and just by moving the knight, the queen's become a defender. So we've got 4 defenders for the D pawn. He's thrown in a check. The eval's pretty even at this stage. And the best move for me... just show off the Lord of the Rings new mug. Just arrived for me today. Best move for me to block the check is C3 because apart from anything else, it's 1 more defender for the D pawn and it's a pawn, best type of defender, and played. He moves his queen back. Now what should I be doing? There's no imminent threat. That they've been pretty reactive so far to what black's been doing. A4, get the pawns going on that side, top move. Bishop to C1, the one that was biting on concrete. It was being a defender, but there's enough defenders, so yeah, I can see that would be good. And it's probably, in my opinion, the bestest thing to do at the moment would be castle and get that king out of the way. But if you ask what did I do, and this is, we're up at the moment, 0.18, which rounds to 0.2 chess.com, not 0.1, but never mind. I had dreams of a Mans course and getting pawn here and knight in there. But we didn't start off trying to do that. There's also 1, 2, 3 pieces attacking that square. So the dream of moving the knight here, pawn forward, knight back, knight in. Talk about had the 4 wins in a row, go MathKM. Playing the do no harm. I think I just did a bit of harm, and it's already half a 0.55 to black there. He's getting ready to fianchetto over there. I still got I can see the half open file. I know that there's stuff going to be coming pointing at my king. I really should be castling. Message to self, should have done it. Knight F3, putting it back where it came from, where it was doing a decent job, or getting those pawns going on the queen side. Instead, trying to make a Stonewall a little bit too late in the game to be trying that, and down to 3.9. So that was really going against incremental improvements and do no harm. So the best thing he can do to take advantage, and whenever you move a pawn, you create weaknesses. This was a defended square. We didn't want that knight coming in, attacking the queen and the bishop. Just bad news, really. And the bishop's not defended by anything. So I'll move the queen, and the queen can't get to a square where it can defend the bishop. That'd be going a piece down right here, right now. That was not lashing out, but it was, don't want to call it hope chess. I've tried to get out of that, but it was saying, oh, that looks a little bit like a stone wall. No, Keith, you're playing the hippo, play the hippo. Anyway, so that would be far and away the best move, the knight there. Luckily, he gives me a tempo, bit of time. King to f2, which would defend that bishop if the knight came in, and if the knight came in, the king's got his own rusty sword. You can see how king to f2 would solve the situation quite well, only minus 1.5. Getting queen to c1, just so it's not a fork on the queen and the bishop. Then if he came in, the bishop could move, there'd be options. What I chose to do was to get some defence on that e3 by knight to f1. It's not as bad as it was, but it's still pretty bad. And knight a to e8, like start getting those major pieces on my king, was his top go. e5, try and make it the semi-open file into an open file, or rook f to e8. So bringing a rook, either rook, this is all the focus. It's kind of my doing, so that's not something that's going to happen again. Again, this was a bit of an odd middle game, partially caused by me and partially caused by my opponent refusing the usual hippo setup. So what did I play? Oh, sorry, it's his move. Instead of bringing the rook or moving the pawn, he has wiped off the knight with the bishop. Best move is just taking it back with the queen. Now, we certainly don't want a rook pinning the queen to the king, and we know this. Black comes forward. And I was worried about the queen being pinned to the king. D takes is the best move, and it's +1 for white. And I saw this pawn was hanging, but it's not really hanging. This is the second kind of big tic-tacical mistake, really, I've played in the middle. There was a few ups and downs, and you saw there are a few blunders, and I'm sure this will be one of them. If I take that pawn, he can take his choice, and either way, he's opened the file, and the queen's standing in front of the king. Whereas if I was to take either with the F or the D, and I can see that D is better, that would keep the queen and the king settled for a bit. So what did I play? And straight to 4.6. So that's a bit of a huge blunder, and no doubt the viewer, you are asking yourself, did MathematicalKM keep on fighting and keep looking to kick and scream and struggle and try and bring it back? Let's see. Best move is E takes D4. Opening that up. And played. Now I know that I can't afford to have the queen pinned to the king. Best moves, castling queenside, because I can't castle short. Played. Best move, D takes C, grab another pawn. Played. Don't want that pawn taking my bishop with check, and just no. Best move for me, bishop A3, which comes with a bit of a tempo on that rook. Played. Now this is returning a little bit of a favour, my opponent. His best move, keeping that pressure at minus 5.4, is just getting a rook, preferably the F rook, to E8, threatening the queen. Still over -5 is knight c to d4, which is again threatening the queen. And a bit of protection, and this would have been important, a bit of protection on the next square that the pawn wants to go to. And knight f to d4, achieving the same. All three top moves threaten the queen, and the two with the knights give some protection to c2. So I am they say there's no luck in chess, but I'm kind of lucky that my opponent just pushed premature pushing. Because that allows me, and sure, the queen's going to be pinned to the king, but far and away the best move is queen takes the pawn, which would not have been a go if there'd been a knight here. And it's it's back to 1.6 from 1.69. Chess.com, that's 1.7. 1.7 to black, but that's not over 5. Few reasons it's tightened up so much. I've got the bishop and the queen on that knight, so if nothing else changes, the queen can take the knight. Queen takes queen, bishop takes queen. So I get a queen and a knight. I win a piece and the queen's come off. So obviously he's not that happy about that. If he moves, we can't move the knight because there's no way the knight can move to protect his queen, and his queen is actually, hanging if there's something attacking it. So what did he find? And the best moves for him, rook A or rook F to C8. The best moves for Gitanch was to get something protecting the queen, which would then allow the knight to disappear and be offering. If I took his queen, he'd take back with the rook and he'd take it back with check. Quite good. And, that rook A to C8 still -1.7. What he did play to solve the situation, and now it's back to -0.36 or -0.4, learnt around chess.com, is the knights protecting each other. All very nice. And so the queen can't take the knight because the knight is protecting it. But the big move for me, and it's where it jumps from -4.6 to 0.4, and I well and truly spotted this, is rook takes, going down the exchange. And I hesitate to call Gitanch a Padawan because he's 8 and also plays, I think, different openings most of the time, but he had half a hippo, and in fact he did fianchetto both and had at least one knight in the right spot. Hippo-ish opening today, young Gitanch. If you're playing a hippo, and he says he's watched my videos, recommend you go back and watch the video called Check Your Mirrors, and there's a hippo on a motorcycle. Because the obvious, these knights are looking after each other, but for me, I'm going to take that knight. And true enough, if you did take with the bishop, I could still then take that knight with the queen, and it would work out okay for me. But the best move by far is taking the rook with the bishop, because it leaves the knight in front of the queen. If the knight takes the rook, the queen takes the queen and doesn't get taken. And yes, it's not that simple. He can pin my queen to my king at that point in time. So it's not as bad as it might look, but queen times c7 does put me up. But I just took a 9-point piece and I'm only up 4.5. Plus 7 on material, plus 4.5 on the eval, and that tells you that there's a bit of life in what black's got going. Rook A to C8 or Rook F to C8. Pin the queen to the king is the obvious move to play, and played. Now what gets me, and I'm not letting you know who wins this one yet, but bit of a, and you can see it's the top move, is popping in to win a pawn, because he dare not take it with the rook, or my queen takes his other rook and it'd be a world of hurt. So I can take that pawn with check. That's my best move. Obviously it's kind of forced. He's not going to go rook take, so he's got to go king h8. And it's at this point that I'm up plus 4.7. So Gitanch has let it slip from similar to black. But it's not always simple in these middle games. What would you play here, dear viewer? Because I'm not quite sure how obvious that queen takes rook, rook takes, king b1, how it's obvious that that's the plus 4.7. At the moment I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, and black has got 4 pieces. If I take, he takes, then black will have 3 pieces and I will have 1, 2, 4 pieces. It'll be 4 versus 3. Starting to see it. Didn't think this quite as far through. That one's on me, and that's evaluating a particular position. Unfortunately, I brought the bishop back to safety, but it would have been safe if the queen had taken the rook, and that was the key. Rook takes, and now we're back to even Stevens. So I just let slip an equivalent advantage to what Gitanch had over me in this rollicking middle game. Bishop times f8 is the second best here, and that's going up the exchange. And now we've in fact got, what's the evaluation? 0.1 minus 0.11. Which is 0.1. You got that one right, chess.com. But 5 pawns versus 4 pawns. You could say that black's pieces are a little more developed for that extra, well, a bit more than 1, because I've got 3 pawns to his. 2 pawns over here and 2v2 over there. So it's come back with black's been up by a lot, and then white was up by a lot of action, and it's back to pretty even, but there's a lot of pieces still on the board. Knights, bishops and rooks, and a lot of pawns. How's this one going to play out? Develop the knight. Ooh, look at that, and I have missed a tic-tac right there. You'd think that that will be the end for the mathematical KM. Can you see the tactic for Gitanch? His best moves go -3, 0, 0. You may have seen it. That bishop is pinned to the king. Too many times in this game I've regretted not castling short when I was meant to. And he makes me pay. Let's see how well I can kick and scream and have a look at the defensive moves that I find here. So the first one is rook. Did the computer like that? Rook to d1. Yeah, it's the top move. Why is it top? I'm planning on taking that pawn back with the knight, and that will give me a discovered attack on his knight. I know it's not a whole lot, but we'll take it. He takes, I take, I've got the discovered attack. He throws in a check. Best is king b1, just stepping to the side. Played. Oh, and you'll note that that was a very cunning move there, right where my knight was looking at it, but it couldn't take because the knight was pinned by the rook. Now the king's gone to the side, the knight's no longer pinned, it's threatening the hanging bishop. So he moves the bishop to where it is protecting the knight. And I think this one was a great move. And you can see it's -1 compared to -3 and -3. Why is this good? If the bishop takes the pawn, the rook takes the knight. Not bad. If the bishop goes anywhere this way, the rook takes the knight. If the bishop goes back, it's still protecting the knight, but we've then got the option of, well, several options. Taking the bishop with my knight, he'd take back, and then the rook would take the knight. So there's really not a lot of good moves. Especially, none of the good moves involve moving that bishop, you'll notice. So what can he do? Rook to b7. Pins that pawn is the problem. And Gitanch, you scared me after the game with I watch your videos. Check this as a cool move that you could have played. Sidestep the rook. Pins the pawn. Pawn can't take the bishop. If the rook takes the knight, the bishop takes back, and you go up the exchange. That would have been a cool move. That would have kept it at -1.4. Knight to e2 is just get the knight out of the way. That's 0.00. And knight to b5 is also getting the knight out of the way but keeping it in the action, but that's a little bit of an edge to me. So what did Gitanch play? The third best move. And he's got his knight there. Now, isn't it interesting, dear viewer, that at the current point in time, black is up 1 point of material. He's up a whole piece. But the eval is 0.2, learnt around chess.com, in white's favour. Let's see if I can make something out of that. So it likes rook to d8 check because, and folks, I was very aware of whatever I do not get a king rook fork from that knight. Don't want that. So let's get the rook a long way away and check the king. And at this point in time, he's got to decide how the bishop wants to die. If the king moves here, then the bishop can die here to the pawn. That may have been better. Or if he blocks the check, and I can see the attraction, block the check with the bishop, rook takes bishop, which comes with check, then his king will come out then, threatening the rook, and the rook will be threatened here, and my knight will be threatened by his rook, which is the plan that Gitanch went for. Block the check. My best move is still check. Computer likes king to g7, in fact, because it's a little forced. 0.00, that analysis. Okay, so what do I do? Tell you what, look at those, the evals, 0, or -3 or -3. There is only one good move. Did I find it? Rook to b8. He's threatening my knight. I'm threatening your knight. Rook to b8. So I found the only good move. Pretty much only one good move here for Gitanch, and that's knight c3 check. And of course it played. So well done. And in this little scenario, I had to stop and think for quite a while. And king c2 was what I ended up going for. Because should he take, then it's interesting the rook b7 throwing in a check first was the go. But king d3 is the same idea as what I had, but better because the king's on the same side. It's not boxed in. You'll see how boxed in my king starts to feel soon. But there's some wisdom. Let's see, we're on 0.1 plus. It's dropping to 1.15 to black. It's a little tricky because the knight can't move to protect the rook. But I guess the rook can move to protect the knight, which is what it does. How do you reckon MathematicalKM's going to go from here? I think I do need Solomon Riddell's new endgame course. It's going to be coming out very soon. But did the computer like that one? B5, yeah, it's in there. Oh, it was in there, so it's one of the top 4 moves anyway. Push. If the knight takes it now, I get to even up the material. He moves the knight out. Let's back up the pawn with the other pawn. He's got the extra piece, but I'm going to try and prove I can get somewhere with these 2 pawns against his 1 pawn. That's my only hope. It's minus 1.5 to black at the minute, so let's see. Check. Dangerous times here. Choices are B2 and A2. There's not a whole lot of difference in it. But I've come here because we don't want to check. There are no checks. Whereas if I'd gone to A2, there would have been a check. He brought his rook back. Advance these pawns. Let's try and make these pawns dangerous. I'm hoping that now that the A pawn's there, that Barry is going to be pretty dangerous here, threatening the rook and the pawn, and protected by a rook. So you can see a big difference, minus 1.6 for king f7, bring the king to help. h5, start your own pawns going, or knight to f6. I don't know where that would be going. But Gitanch, and I thought this was quite a reasonable move, but it's pretty close to 0 in there. And it's devious. At the moment, his rook can't take the B pawn because it would die. But I very much want to play B6. If I play B6, he's going to play check with that rook. I can move wherever I want. And then he'll have a rook, a knight, and a pawn all on there. And I think he can explode it down and come out in front. Not what I want. So my best move is king to b3. Trying to get the king in to help. Rook b7 check. Interesting. Or king a3. Top move, bringing the king. Okay, for Gitanch, he has got a check. That's the top. Otherwise, king to f6. Bring the king. And that was... I mean, we both had up steps and great moves and ups and downs, but that was not the place to bring the king. And look, all my best three moves are all 0.00. And what I thought was, I knew I couldn't move the G pawn to wipe all this out, because unless I thought I could do enough by attracting that knight over here, if I thought I could then get stuff through because the knight wasn't there. But I didn't believe I could, so I moved the H pawn forward, and it proved to be a winning strategy. And let's see what happens to the eval when I play that move. Goes from 0.0 to 1.1, 1.2 to black. In many ways it was a mistake, but it's offering the forbidden fruit to my opponent, tempting him to clean up all three of these pawns, really, but deflecting these pieces away from my very dangerous pawns. So let's see how this plays out. He brings the rook. Best move for me is king to a4, which would allow a check. King to b2 is 1 point, but it's minus 2.2. It's worse, but and by a whole point. However, king here does have the advantage that there are no knight checks and no rook checks, and it is tempting, go and kill Gary. That'd be interesting if I went for that for the title, go and kill Gary. Okay, and the top move is go and kill Gary. He's played the top move. And we're at 2.6. Let's let it settle. 2.7 went around chess.com. And the move I play, computer likes king b7. Sorry, rook to b7 or rook to a8. Nope. Let's do this. Wow, minus 4.2. I think I'd had a video called Anti-Hope Chess. I guess the very best move is not very human. And Gatanch is getting stronger and stronger, and he's going to pick up on why this was a bit of showbiz razzle-dazzle that he could have beaten. And the way to beat it is knight takes, a takes, a takes, king c2, rook takes h3. I lose both of these pawns and this pawn, and he loses that pawn. That's going to be a better deal, that getting rid of both of these strong pawns from white for the price of that knight, when you're going to be the one who ends up with the strong pawns and we'll have a rook each, is a better deal for black. That's the thing to think out. Though normally maybe taking the pawn with the knight wouldn't Seem like a good deal. These are strong pawns. And it drops off quite a lot if you don't take that with the knight. You've got rook to g2, check. Is, strong option with checking. A times b6, starting to get rid of these pawns, is nearly at 0. It would be probably up in the -3 region if you could force me to take back. But the best move for white by a mile is -5 if I take back. But no. We want to be a queen. And he takes Harry. So I'm banking on getting a queen. Black may end up sacking a piece on that. He'd prefer it to be the knight. And at any point after that sort of thing happens, black will have more pawns than white, even if the number of pieces has equalised. So, going for gold. And look at that analysis, 0.00. He checks. Best move for me is king b3, played. I need to not let this rook get on the A file. He checks. Best move for me, king to b2. Not letting that rook get on the A file. It would be king to c4. It's kind of an interesting different one. That would let his king get to his rook get to a3. I would take the knight. He would take the pawn. And then it gets confusing and a lot more difficult to work that one out. But it becomes a pure rook and pawn ending. I think the b pawn would die in that little lot, so it'd be 2 versus 1 with both of the rooks. But I'll tell you what, my king not being brave enough to go there, but just going backwards and forwards, not letting that rook come across, I could see that we didn't even do the repetition. I could see that the repetition was coming. What was quite interesting was all of the other players after, and it was at this point that I offered the draw. It's interesting, black's up 4 points of material, but that's a super strong pawn. I offered the draw and Gitanch accepted it, and a few people thought that maybe I could have moved my king in, or that maybe I had a chance, but it's nice to see that chess.com is putting this on 0.00000. Great game, Gitanch. And you're getting better all the time, and no doubt next time will be even trickier. Keep watching my videos, like and subscribe. Helps the channel, as they say. Oh, goodbye everybody from the Mathematical KM. That's 5 in a row with no losses. Can't say 5 wins in a row, but I'll go with 5 in a row, no losses.